going. I'm going to transcribe it, so it doesn't matter. Whatever. Okay. So let me ask you this, and let me close the door. Except for Daryl, when he comes, I'll keep it slightly cracked for him. I have 4 questions for you, okay? Mm-hmm. First one is, don't be shy. First question is, what did you like about the class?
I'm A, and I liked about the class is that it actually opens your eyes to technology, not just used in the classrooms and where they're used, but in general, because a lot of people don't understand that there's more to technology than just the surface of having a laptop or a tablet or even a cell phone. It goes in deeper in what you can actually use these tools for. So I really liked that a lot about the class.
I'm subject B, going off of what subject A said. I totally agree because throughout the process of the class, we integrated technology into teaching, but there was a strong focus on the technology spectrum, and I believe it's a great subject in the course because technology is uprising in today's society, and I kind of personally felt like a techie person when I actually designed the apps and got into the technology spectrum and then actually introduced it into an educational setting.
I am subject C. What I like most about this class probably are like all the resources I'm going to take home and like to my professional practice. We have like a bunch of resources that are free. We have also the options for that are paid. It all depends like on our possibilities and our needs and the needs of our students. So that's one thing. And also what I did like about these classes is that we also went in depth of what subject A say about technology. So it's not about like, oh yeah, let's use all of these resources that we learn, but it's also like I think that this class made me think about like what implies using technology in the classroom and why we do it and why we don't and why we should learn when to use it and when to not. So those are like the 2 main things that I liked about this class.
I'm letter D. What I really liked was I know a lot of people through my mom, because she works in the schools, use videos constantly as their technology. But in this course, it went beyond videos. We didn't even talk about videos as technology in the class because, in my opinion, they don't teach. So I really liked how it gave us free and open resources that actually seem to help children learn. It's not just staring at a TV screen all day long.
Going off of D and C, they both said resources, which was one of the things that was really cool. There's so many resources, especially for teachers that are upcoming, that we had no idea that there was even Google Docs and how we can implement Google Docs throughout our classroom or Google Classroom, and that we learned how to even just living in different areas, coming together through a document online. Like, that was really cool because you can pretty much go to anywhere, Walmart, Starbucks, McDonald's, they all have Wi-Fi, and if you don't have Wi-Fi at home, you have that access elsewhere, out in public, where you can actually still access all these documentations or resources too.
Just say it.
I am subject A. I can say that.
Oh, you do? Okay, great.
Just I have one little thing to do, subject C again. Another thing that I really like is the personal learning network. I think that it's a concept I've never thought before, but I think it's something very useful because we're like, I mean, education and teaching is like so big, like so broad. We have like different subjects and themes and topics we're going to teach or talk about, and we, of course, we don't have like all the knowledge of the world to how to teach it. So it's really important to connect yourself with other professionals who have maybe like more experience on some other fields that you don't, to help each other and build continue building like this learning community, and that's really helpful as well.
Anything else? I'm just checking to make sure the recordings are still going. Okay. So we talked about what you like about the class, but what would you like to change about the class?
This is subject A, and I would say probably have it a little more structured in the sense of not kind of throwing us to the wolves, giving us a little more guidance on how to use these resources, or even, more resources for us to better understand how to use these resources. Because some of the technology that we use, like Flipgrid, was a very new app to us, but it was also a good resource. I just wish I would got more in depth in how to, put the emojis instead of having my personal face there versus, using my Bitmoji maybe as the talking voice instead of that kind of stuff. I think we could also definitely say have an expansion of not just the small discussions, but the bigger discussions. Like, how can we expand on them? That's what I think we could improve on, is how to make those. We only touch that topic once, and then we just leave it alone. I feel like going back to it, at least revisiting it one more time, would be beneficial.
This is subject B, and I totally agree with subject A. I believe that there should be like more or less an outline. I believe that when I took the course, the material that we would be covering was kind of just thrown at me with no heads up or any kind of guidance to what we were going to do next. And I think that would be the change that I would make in the course, just having a guideline of the activities that we're going to do throughout the course, and kind of the best bet would be to set them in a list that would kind of flow in the best way possible. But another thing that I did enjoy a lot, and I think that opened my personal learning, would be the makerspace. But I think there should be more of a focus of how we could use that into the classroom. And
Which is kind of what you were saying, right?
This is subject C. One thing I would like the class to improve is to build like a better environment among students, because not in the sense that I don't know, like to feel safe or anything like that, but to improve like interactions among us, because everything was just like mostly through discussions online or through Twitter. I didn't get to really know my classmates. I didn't know like the faces of most of you, like by the end of the semester. It's like, oh, I started like becoming conscious of who each of us were. So I think that it's really, really important that among your students, your classmates, with your teacher or professor, you build these environments where everyone gets to know everyone. And I mean, we had a really good start with the superheroes task. I really liked that one, but it was like left there. So maybe we could have used that activity to do something else that brought us together. I think that will be like really, really cool to improve that part, to really get to know your classmates and the people who you're working with.
I'm subject D, and one of the changes I think should happen is having more of the crossing of what we do online to what we do in class. Because a lot of the discussions that we do online, we don't know everybody's point of view. We only did the couple 2 people we replied to, and we just kind of left it there. So the great debate felt like something we sort of touched on at the beginning, but we never grew on the subject, what we could actually do and build off of that. It seemed like a lot of things were kind of just cut short, and I know there's a lot to shove. There's a lot of things to discuss in this course, but I feel like maybe some more solid talk about it thoroughly more a little bit on some of the resources and activities would benefit the class a lot.
Okay, my next question is, can you choose 3 class activities that provided information that was useful to you as a future teacher? What are you going to take with you as a future teacher? Can you think of 3 things?
This is subject A, and I would say the 3 things that I would take with me as a future teacher is definitely using like Remind as an app to communicate back and forth with my parents. I plan to go into the preschool realm, so I really think that's a really good source, especially because not all preschoolers are even touching on technology, but having that as a good source with communication in general with parents and even other co-workers, staff, and everything like that. The other 2, I would definitely say I would use probably the Google, not just Google Docs, but Google in general. The docs, the slides, everything, to put together my lesson plans or learning plans, as we called it throughout this class, but a lesson plan. That way I have a backup to go and look at and say, okay, this is what I did this year. This is what I plan to use maybe again next year, and hopefully it works out the same. As also just a reflection on my part as a upcoming teacher. I feel like that would be definitely good to see my own database on it and have that. Okay, it worked here, it didn't work here. And then the last thing I definitely would take with me and probably implement more in my classrooms is the flip grid. Like I said, preschool, they won't have as many technology tools, but if they have a tablet in that classroom, let the kids make their own videos. Let them get involved and teach them the proper ways of how to do certain things where they're not making a fool of themselves in that, digital citizenship, and have that respect for themselves. So those are the 3 tools I would definitely take with me.
This is subject B, and I would not change the materials that I would find helpful for my future career. I would also use Flipgrid, Google. When I say Google, I mean Google Classroom, Google Docs, Google, I don't know what's the name of it, but a source of Google where the search engine is kind of geared towards the children, and you don't.
I was going to say Google
What is
Scholar.
No, that's
No,
like-
it's not Google
It's
Kittle or something along those
I
lines.
didn't know that.
But
Yeah,
it's a
Can you
sort.
say it again for the recording?
I'm
What do you
not.
think it is?
I'm not sure of the name, but I know it's a Google source where all the search engines are kind of monitored, so you don't get inappropriate sources or anything of that content. So I would definitely use Google as one of my main sources. And my last one would be Flipgrid. And the reason I would love to use Flipgrid would be because I believe it kind of sets this sort of social media type of a classroom. And I think it's kind of, even the students find it interesting to kind of be recording oneself and be able to make it public to the classroom and see others' response to the same activity. So I believe those 3 sources would be the ones I would use in my future career.
Okay, this is subject C. I have to agree with the other 2 subjects. I will use Google Classroom in general. Everything that Google has to offer, I think, is such an amazing source. It's free, it's useful, it's friendly, like to use. It's basically everything. Another tool I will try to apply in my classroom is, I forgot like the specific names, but they're maker spaces that we use. Like try to connect them, like either like the Ozobots or the 3D pens or all that stuff. Try to implement them in my classroom. And the other one, games in general, such as math snacks, such as just like apps in general. I think like a game-based learning is a new approach for me. I learned while I was being here, and it's definitely something I would love to include in my teaching practice.
I'm subject D, and one of the things I would take away from this is the gameful learning, where you make the environment very like playful and fun. So it's like missions instead of homework, So it like kind of takes the like homework aspect out of the kids and makes learning fun again, because that's a big issue, especially in the public schools. The second thing I would like to take away is the design thinking, because it's like technology, but it's more hands-on for those kids who are very kinesthetic. Because I know many people personally that are very hands-on and need that real-life experience to kind of help them through. So I think that's a good way to kind of introduce technology into the classroom. And then third is definitely using the vast resources of Google is a big one. I would think it would have been great to cover even more of the Google resources, so like maybe go more into like the slides and other things, because the Google documents are useful for like if you're team teaching, for your students, for your parents. It's something that's really easy to access and most people can access it, so I really liked the Google resources.
If you had to add a fourth, or is there anything else you would like to add? Anybody? You don't have to. Just thinking if there was something you missed.
I think this subject day, and I definitely would say adding something else to the classroom in general would have to be the communication amongst everybody, how we communicate. So Twitter was a really good resource as a communication source. If we couldn't get a hold of, our professor, we would email her through Twitter. It was faster because she said, it's on her phone. She gets a notification, she'll reply faster. It's a little bit more useful to have that kind of resource. I think we'd also implement is just having that connection built.
Do you think it would be useful to have a Twitter page for your classroom? And for you, like more for the parents and the kids?
It would probably, just so they can understand what's going on, like have like a setup. But I would see it more or less along the lines of just having like Google Classroom versus having the actual Twitter account. I feel like Twitter should just strictly be for, if that's the last resource of getting a hold of me. I feel like if you're going to use Google Classroom or you're going to use any other form of sources to get a hold of me, email, phone call, whatever, I feel like those ones should be my first option. That's why I said I like the Remind, and I think definitely would be continuous in my practice.
Just curious your opinions on Twitter. You think it would be helpful for your classrooms or not?
This is subject C. Personally, I think what I think about Twitter is helpful and is useful for me to get together with my personal learning network. Not much with my students, because of their age, I plan to work with elementary, so I don't see it as a tool that we can use like students with the teacher, but I see it, as I said, for building my personal learning network. It's definitely a useful tool, but I think it's more for me.
This is subject B. Again, going off of what subject C said, I totally agree. I would use Twitter as a source to communicate with peers, but due to the fact that the age level and the development process for a child wouldn't be at the same cognitive level as an adult, so I believe that to communicate with the students, you could use sources as Remind or things of that nature, and I would use Twitter more as my PLN to kind of help myself in the classroom and not focus too much on the communication between me and the students.
This is subject D, and I agree with what subject C and B are saying about for the lower, younger age kids, that it might not necessarily be the best thing, but maybe for like your middle school, high schoolers, it'd be very beneficial, because I think it's kind of connecting on the social media aspect, and it'd be more fun for them to post a tweet instead of do something else. I do think it would be a good tool for like parents to get a hold of you if you're like out of town or something maybe, but there are other ways for parents of getting a hold of you that are just as useful.
And the last question is, what will you take with you from this class for yourself as a learner? Not for the classroom, but for you.
This is subject A, and I would say what I took from this class for myself is definitely expanding my knowledge of all these new resources that were out there I had no idea about. And I think it helps me even just going through college, because now I'm using a Google Doc to get a project done or type a paper with another friend versus having to meet up with them at the library, where that's sometimes inconvenient because we all have schedules and lives to live. So I feel like that was definitely something I'm going to continue using and taking with me, is using those Google resources. That way I can be in wherever I'm location at, and then they can be wherever they're location at, and we never actually have to physically meet unless it's necessary, you know. But
This is subject B, and I think that this course taught me a lot of the technology, even though the course is actually to teach us how to teach technology to students. I believe that I picked up many of the sources, and I am going to use them in my college career, for lack of a better term, because many of the sources, like subject A said, like Google Docs, they're very useful when you're kind of working together in a group, and these are sources that you could use even in college today, and basically that's the whole spectrum. Like all the sources that we used in this classroom, I hadn't used them before, besides Google Classroom, and that's what I learned. I learned all the sources and basically even the final project that Dr. Parra put, the take home book, that I thought that was really helpful because I know that I have those sources there for me if I ever need to use them in future references or so. But that's all I have to say.
This is subject C. What I take personally for this class, one of the things I like that goes beyond an academic matter, I will say, is the pedagogy of caring that Dr. Para uses in her class. She didn't give too much importance like to the grading. She always said that whenever we had difficulty or trouble turning the any assignment on time, we could talk to her and it would be fine by her. I felt that I had no pressure, no like, anxiety or just worrying too much about it, because I knew she would understand. Even though during the semester I hadn't any difficulty, any trouble about turning in any assignment, I still knew that it was going to be okay and it was going to be fine. Also, I know, like, she's a person who cares, and that's truly an inspiration as developing myself as a teacher, because for me education is that goes beyond the content and goes beyond the academic matter, but it also includes the personal involvement you have with your students, and to show them that you care about them makes learning more meaningful, I think. So that's what I personally take for me of this class.
I'm subject D, and what I've personally took from this class is I was familiar with many of the resources, but I did get some new things like Flipgrid, but it reinvested my love for like STEM, because I was more interested in a more STEM-based field, but I leaned more towards education. So I really liked this course, and seeing how to integrate it into technology, and seeing how early childhood is one of the harder ones and they're trying to adapt it. It makes me want to future pursue my master's in educational technologies.
Fantastic. Great. Well, it sounds like you guys got a lot out of this in terms of technology for yourself, for your students. The pedagogy of Dr. Fada is textbook. She follows the textbook. You know, that's what I always say, living pedagogue. Okay? Those people are rare.
yeah,
And there are a few of them in the college, but she's one. But you also feel like maybe the class could be more structured.
a little.
Yeah, more structured, kind of like some of the other classes. But structure, you know what to expect. All right.
This is like a little thing. Do I say subject C? Okay, subject C. I think that's understandable, because as far as I know, this is like the first time she gives this class. So I understand that not having like a clear outline about what we're going to do is not what we're used to in education, because we like things to be like have an order, and personally I'm one of those persons, but at the same time I think we should like be a little bit more comprehensive with her, because sometimes I got the feeling that everyone got like a little bit upset for her not having everything already figured out. But I mean, we're going to be teachers one day, so it's like um, we were part of this journey as well, trying to like be patient and understand and comprehend. And sometimes I knew that there were like things, assignments that will show up like out of nowhere. But I mean, we need to have this ability to adapt, you know, and instead of like um, I don't want to say complain, but let's say complain. Just try to um, be helpful and be proactive. I don't know. Like I said, I don't like when things are not well structured, but at the same time, it's kind of understandable. I thought I just had to point that out.
No, this is subject A, and I agree completely with subject C. You know, we were thrown in for a loop. We had no idea what to expect, and every day when we walked into class was a new experience for us. Whether it was us doing the superheroes, and that took a good 2 weeks just in alone to figure out who everybody's superhero was and how we identified ourselves as that superhero and what made us that superhero, and then going into the STEM month long of makerspace and learning about how to use these tools and gadgets that were new things to people who've never even explored past one building inside the whole entire campus of NMSU. You know, that was something new too, which was like, wow, I didn't even know this was existing. And it was for an experience that I think I actually enjoyed the most, was that it was a risk taking class. Like, you were taking that risk, you were jumping into the water without knowing how deep it was. And that was the good part about it, is you got to throw yourself in something, see how the product came out, and if you didn't like it, obviously give that feedback, tell how you felt about it, and then move on. That was what was really cool, is that we got to even reflect back on like, what did we like, what didn't we like, you know, what can we improve, okay, well, what makes it this way, you know. And it was that discussion, and it was open-ended, and it would always go back to certain things, so certain topics would go right back to it, and I was like, wow, I like this. I like that we can go back and actually, you know, break it down again. You know, why did we go to this subject? What made it what we are now? And closing with it is like, this class has a lot more to offer than what people are just seeing the surface of. Integrating technology. Oh my gosh, such a scary word. Oh my gosh, let's freak out. Let's have a spastic moment, and then learning. Okay, well now technology is everywhere. A pencil's a technology, you know, and then breaking it down even further as, well, how would you implement this more into a classroom? What can we do, you know? I think that risk is what we took, not as just educators, but as students, and taking that risk with someone who was like, I've never taught an undergrad class in person. Let's do this. Like, we're all in it together. So I definitely agree with you, subject C.
This is subject B, and I totally agree with both subject C and A. I love how you all summed up how the learning environment was kind of open in this classroom. And I kind of taking on that point, I kind of believe that this classroom kind of more or less has to stay with an open learning environment, because technology is just a wide spectrum, and technology is always frequently changing. New things are coming up often. So that environment has to kind of stay open, because you don't know what to teach the children, or what to teach your students to teach your children later on, since technology is changing so fast. And that's basically my view of the class, that I think that it's okay to kind of not be structured like subject C said. We are future teachers, and it's different to think of what you're going to do in the environment than when you're actually in the position. And I believe even us as future teachers, we're going to have that bumpy road at the start, where we're not going to understand how to manage a classroom, or how to teach a specific subject or a concept, whatever the case may be. But there's always going to be that bumpy road to your success.
Are there any final comments? Anything else you'd like to say? Well, thank you guys very much. We got some great information here. Can you turn that off?
Yes.
And I hope we got everything. I'll turn this one
Redo
off.
it.
Right? Start all over again.
We can.
Already did that.